Growing up, I always heard there are two things that are certain in life, death and taxes. But what if they weren't? Well, we can't do anything about death, but maybe we can do something about taxes if you're a US citizen. My name is Adrian Fields, and I'm an expat entrepreneur that has been living outside the United States for the last 6 years. And today I was inspired to make this video because I am absolutely sick of dealing with taxes and the IRS, and it's something that is so absurd that as someone who hasn't even stepped foot in the United States for almost 4 years, I'm still having to pay the US government every single year. So in this video, I want to talk about basically why I'm very desperate, or at least very anxious and looking forward to renouncing my US citizenship as soon as possible, and why you may also be interested in this if you are an expat, aspiring expat, etc. Let me start off by saying that I feel lucky to have grown up in the United States. I feel lucky to have had the opportunities that I had there. But at this point in my life, as someone in their early 30s with a growing business, I find that being a US citizen is a liability. And moreover, because I actually don't even like being in the United States, I feel like a foreigner in that country, and I really have no plans to ever live there again. So I find it, as I said, absurd that I still have to pay into the IRS and the government when I am getting nothing back in return. Let me give you a bit of a background about my life if you are new to this channel and you don't know. As I said, I'm an expat entrepreneur. I own an international business that is basically mostly e-commerce, and have been doing that for the last 7 years. And as soon as I had the opportunity to leave the United States, because my business got to the point that I could afford that, but yet I actually could not really afford the lifestyle that I had in Los Angeles where I was living, I left. And the first place that I moved to was Mexico, and then subsequently moved to Asia, and Bali has been my home for almost 4 years now. What I find so frustrating as a small business owner is the fact that the taxes that I have to pay to the US government is money that I would much rather keep in my business to continue to grow my business. And even if I were tomorrow to no longer be a US citizen, I'm still paying taxes in the US in the form of import duties for my products, in the form of sales tax for my customers. So I would never be fully tax-free in the United States. But there are ways that if you are no longer a citizen, then clearly your tax liability is much less. In my case now, I'm a tax resident of Indonesia, so I pay taxes here, and I also pay tax in the United States. The United States is one of the only countries in the entire world that taxes you based on your citizenship and not based on your residency. So as I said, I have not even stepped foot in the US for the past almost 4 years, but yet I still have to pay tax there in addition to the tax that I pay here. Now, if you're not in the United States for more than 30 days in the year, you do qualify for the federal earned income tax exclusion, which means that for the first $118,000, I believe it is, of your income, you don't have to pay federal tax. But as a self-employed person with my own business, I still have to pay self-employment tax, which means Social Security and both parts of Medicare. Now, since I have no plans to ever live in the United States again, I don't think that I will benefit from those programs. I mean, why am I paying into a system that might even be bankrupt by the time that I could eventually benefit from it? I mean, these are all questions. If I were, let's say, a citizen of some other place and I completely got rid of my US citizenship, I would have zero tax liability other than the tax of the place, for example, Indonesia, where I'm a resident, or if I were to move, then a resident of somewhere else. And I really am just frustrated of having to still pay into a government that I don't believe in. I don't believe in supporting this empire and the absolute waste of the US government in all of the things that it wastes. I would much rather be a citizen of some small Caribbean island that basically doesn't have any money and therefore doesn't spend any money. I think I've been inspired recently, not only because of my frustration with paying taxes in the US, but then there's this new program on HBO. I think it's called The Anarchists, and it's about a group of people, not in the sense of anarchy, of no government, but in the sense of wanting freedom, and they all relocate to Acapulco, Mexico, and then it's like a drama. But yeah, I mean, I've kind of been very much interested in this alternative living for a long time. I follow a guy and a company called Nomad Capitalist, who talks extensively about how you can reduce your tax burden by getting other citizenships. Being here in Bali, I'm really envious of people from any other country in the world, because basically all of these digital nomads and expats here, I'm pretty sure they're paying 0% tax, because they're not paying tax in their home country since they don't live there. And most likely they're not set up to pay tax legally here in Indonesia as well. Now I own a business here in Indonesia. I went through all of the processes that you had to go through in order to be legally compliant with Indonesia. I mean, that's important to me. I don't want to be on the wrong side of the law. So even though I'm morally opposed to paying tax in the United States, I'm not going to not pay tax there, because I don't want to end up in a situation where my passport is suspended or I'm threatened with jail. I want to do things legally. And so for me, that means that eventually I do need to get another citizenship, and then once that happens, renounce my US citizenship. And the United States doesn't even make that very easy for you to do. You have to renounce in person at a US embassy, pay $2,000. They don't want people leaving the US. I mean, when you're a citizen of the United States, you're like the property of the government. And again, I'm just very opposed to that. I'm the property of nobody but myself. So my plan is that I would like to get a second passport as soon as possible in a country that has a citizenship by investment plan, which is a lot of countries in the Caribbean. Also in South America, there are various countries that have this, such as Colombia. I have friends who have relocated there. And once I have that in place, I really would definitely renounce my US citizenship. For me, I just do not see any benefit whatsoever in being a citizen of the United States when I don't want to live in that country. And at that point, I would ostensibly have enough money that even if I had a passport that was weaker, like let's say from some Caribbean country, it's not a big deal to get a visa for Europe if I want to go there. I mean, I've also begun to look into the possibilities of getting on the residency track for Europe. Spain is a country that I really enjoy, and for about €500,000, if you buy a property, then you can get immediate residency, and then that opens up a lot of opportunities. But even if I didn't have €500,000 to invest in a property, it's really not hard to become a resident of these countries if you have sufficient money. I spoke to a lawyer when I was in Spain who told me about the possibility of getting a visa as someone who's not working and just has enough money to support themselves, and that's really not very difficult. I mean, you need to show that you have, I think, €29,000 in your bank account, and then you can get a one-year residency visa, which can be renewed and then put you even on the path to citizenship. So it's not as if were I to give up my US passport, I would have less mobility. When you have enough money, you can basically go anywhere and nothing is that challenging. So as my business has continued to grow, I feel that being a US citizen is a liability. What I do currently is pay myself as little as possible and keep as much money in my business as possible so that I am not subject to that self-employment tax. And let's say in the next couple years I want to sell my business. Well, I don't want to be liable in that case either for the capital gains tax in the United States. So there's just so many problems with being a US citizen. Unfortunately, I'm also very pessimistic about the future of the United States. I just don't have a good feeling about where things are headed in that country. I think that the United States is becoming very unstable, and I want to maximize the amount of freedom that I have in my life, which means that I do not want government intruding upon my life, which means I don't want the government taking my money, I don't want the government telling me what I can do, etc. So I'm very worried, again, about how the United States is going to develop in the next 10, 20, whatever years. And it's like, with that instability, I would rather just not have to worry about it by not being a citizen at all. I think that were I a citizen of some other small country, you have a lot less worries. Let's say I was to have a passport from some other random country, let's say like St. Lucia or Colombia. You don't even have to live in those countries if I'm a resident of somewhere else. So it doesn't limit you in any way, just that, for example, being a US citizen, I'm not limited in all of the different places that I have lived over time, because you go and you get a visa for where you want to live if it's not the country of which you're a citizen. I think the further that you get on this digital nomad path, if you become a successful entrepreneur and you're an American citizen, you cannot help but arrive at this conclusion of, well, why am I still paying tax in the United States when I don't live there, when I'm getting nothing in return, and when that country is so unstable? There was a news article that really piqued my interest recently. It was something that I saw on the Drudge Report, which was that a huge amount of Americans are moving down to Mexico, specifically Mexico City, and the locals are really unhappy about it. Now, I actually lived in Mexico for a year and a half, though not in Mexico City. I lived in Tulum in a place called San Miguel de Allende. And I think that many people are getting to this point in the United States realizing how bad that country is, that things are just out of control. And it's really sad, you know, places that I used to live, New York, Los Angeles, have just become crime hellholes. And people are asking themselves, why am I paying so much money to live in this country? And with the explosion of digital nomad work and digital nomad lifestyles, with the freedom that people have to go and live anywhere, they're asking themselves, well, why stay in this country where I'm spending so much money when I'm actually, even in the United States, incentivized if you leave that country to pay less taxes with the federal earned income exclusion, where the first $118,000 or something along those lines of your income is tax-free. So the more you get used to that lifestyle of not being in the United States, the less that you actually want to go back. You realize that a lot of countries offer a better quality of life than the United States for a much cheaper cost of living. It's definitely a luxury that I and other people have if you're able to earn your income online or you're able to earn your income remotely, and especially if you're an actual entrepreneur and business owner, not just someone who is an employee of some company. I think that it actually harkens back to Ayn Rand and the fountainhead, this notion of, you know, if a country enacts these abusive measures towards its citizens and takes too much of their money and disincentivizes being a business owner, well then anyone who's smart is going to go somewhere else. And that's certainly what I did, because I realized again that the United States was not the place for me. It's not a place that I enjoy being. And I want to keep as much money that I earn as possible into growing my business, into providing opportunities for other people and doing the things that I love. I just feel very confident that after 6 years of not living in the United States, that the United States is not a country that I ever want to live in again. I think that I have the luxury now with the business that I have built and the lifestyle that I've created, that I only see possibilities in the world. I don't really see limitations. That again, if you have movable capital, then you can live anywhere in the world. Even, you know, when I left the United States, I really did not have a lot of money. I sold my car. I had maybe a couple $1,000s in my bank account plus what I got from selling the car, and with that I moved to Mexico. Yes, of course, I had a business that was generating income, so that again is what gave me the confidence to leave the United States. If you're just beginning your digital nomad or your expat journey, I think it's really worth it to see how you go for a couple years, and if you're able to maintain and support yourself well outside of the US and you don't find yourself going to the United States very frequently, then you also might look into renouncing your US citizenship. It's not necessarily something that I'm saying is right for everybody, but for some people who are successful entrepreneurs and who are adventurous enough to live an international lifestyle, then I think that being a US passport holder is only a hindrance and not a benefit at a certain point. One resource that I really recommend if you're interested in learning more about an expat lifestyle and how you can maximize the amount of personal freedom that you have is a website called Nomad Capitalist. There's this guy, Andrew Henderson, who created it, and he has a ton of content all about getting a second citizenship or about renouncing his citizenship. I really admire what he did, which is that he renounced his US citizenship, got a passport from St. Lucia, but has a very international lifestyle with home bases all around the world. And that's something that I really aspire to. And if you aspire to that as well, then watch his videos. I really recommend it. So thank you guys for watching this. I hope it was interesting and somewhat helpful or useful to you. Until the next time, take care, and I'll see you later.